This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to the Great Love Debate, the world's number one dating and relationship podcast. Since 2015, I am back here in the very fine and fancy studios of Pod Populi, Podcast for the People. I'm sitting on a couch. It's very luxurious. I'm at the one in Boca Raton, Florida. And I'm gonna read you a list of a bunch of celebrities, famous people, mostly actors. And you're going to guess at home, what do these people have in common? And then I'm going to tell you what they have in common and why I want to bring it up today. Okay? A little bit different today, but little exercise I want to do. I'm going to give you this list. And yes, they're all wealthy, but that's not the reason for the list. Are you ready? Oprah Winfrey, John Cusack, Matt Dillon, Bill Maher, Al Pacino, Charlize Theron, Sheryl Crow, Owen Wilson, Keanu Reeves, Matthew Perry, Marissa Tomei, Diane Keaton, Brian Christopher Howie. So I threw myself on that list. And so just off the top of my head there are 4 Oscar winners on that list. But that's not what they have in common. That is a list of people who are over 40 years old and have never been married. And they range in age from the youngest on that list is probably Charlize, and the oldest on that list is Al Pacino, 83, and everyone in between. These are people that have not been married. And I throw myself in there because I am one of those people. And why do I bring that up? I bring that up because I get asked that question all the time. How can you do a show about love, dating, relationships when you've never been married? And I have a couple of answers to that. First of all, this is not a advice show. This is an opinion show. This is a discussion show. I'm not out here. I'm not coaching anybody. I'm giving you a sort of the consensus based on the fact that we visit and hear literally millions of people over the last 10 years on this show and are trying to give you at least a little bit of a roadmap to that. Now, where does this roadmap hope to lead? I believe to marriage, or at least a long-term relationship, which I have and have always had lots of those. But most of these people on this list, and so people say to me, like, how can you have never been married? Well, you don't have to be even for those who do coach and have never been married, who are dating relationship coaches, Bill Belichick never played professional football. It doesn't mean he can't coach Tom Brady. And an oncologist doesn't have to have cancer in order to be able to treat it, That being said, I believe that if you have gotten to the age of 40 years old and you have never been married, you had better be prepared to give an answer on that question beyond I was too busy or I hadn't met the right person yet or any of that, because all of those answers are bullshit, and there is a real reason why you haven't gotten married, including me. And it's not necessarily a positive thing. If I met somebody over 40 to date and she had never been married, it would absolutely be a red flag to me. I would want to know why. I would want to know the answer of why they have never been married. And so I'm not here to just necessarily talk about marriage is better or worse or whatever. I'm going to get into a lot of that. I just want to talk about a lot of these people, why they give their answers as to why they've never been married. Some are good and some are, I think, cop-outs. And then I'm going to talk about me and my reason and some of the things that I believe. And I do believe in marriage. And as I've said many, many times on this podcast, the reason why a lot of marriages break down, I guess, is because pretty quickly, I think too many marriages go from husband, wife to mom and dad. And mom and dad is a whole different dynamic than, let's date and let's fall in love. And there's a lot less romantic elements about it, when you take away the family. That being said, I researched some of these people to see what their answers are as to why they didn't get married or why they have not gotten married. And some of them are a little snarky and some of them are cop-outs, like I said. So I'm going to read you a few of them. So John Cusack, who's not nearly as famous as he used to be, but he was famous for a while. And his father went to my college, by the way. Somebody asked him, could you describe why you have not gotten married in 5 words or less? And Cusick said, no, but I can do it in 7. Society doesn't tell me what to do. You know, that's his answer, but that's not really a reason. Like, you should not get married just because you're sort of this rebel against society. You know, there's a lot of reasons to get married. There's a lot of reasons not to get married. I don't think because you're like, I don't need a piece of paper to tell me to fall in love. I think that's a cop-out. And I think you need to have a better reason than that. Bill Maher, who's a crusty fucker if you've ever met him, but he says, I mean, is anyone really that interesting that that they will be the person you want to spend this much time with for the rest of your life? And I think the answer to that is hopefully, marriage or not, if you find the right person, hopefully you will want to spend as much time with them forever and ever and ever, and everybody else pales in comparison. So I think he's wrong in that. Charlize says, marriage, that's never been something that's important to me. Well, that's a little bit of a dismissive thing too, because it doesn't mean just because something wasn't always important to you, doesn't mean that it couldn't be important to you. And doesn't mean that it wouldn't be important to your partner or your relationship or anything else. So I'm not particularly fond of her answer either. Diane Keaton, who is darling, if you ever run across Diane Keaton, stop her and talk to her for 15 minutes because she is a delight. And she's probably close to 80. And she dated Al Pacino, I guess, back in the day after the Godfather in real life. And he's never been married either. So I don't know if that's some kind of pact they made. But she says, I just don't think it would have been a good idea for me to have been married. And to me, that takes a certain degree of ownership, because I think she says that maybe she has some elements that she has not dealt with where she may be either trapped or unable to sort of fulfill the commitment of marriage. Maybe she would feel like she was somehow put in a situation where, so I think that this is sort of an unresolved issue with her and the people that she's dated, lots of famous people. Maybe she put that out to them that I'm a really good girlfriend, not such a great possible wife. Ava Mendes gave an answer, and she is very famously, and I think very committed to Ryan Gosling, who also has never been married, but I don't think he's quite old enough to make this list. But Ava Mendes said, I actually think it's really sexy to be with someone in their 50s or 60s and be like, that's my boyfriend. I think husband and wife are very unsexy words. Now, I think that is getting somewhere. I think that's getting to a place where it's like, the reason I'm not married is because I want something even more fun and deeper, and I'm not saying marriage doesn't necessarily mean that. People get married for a whole lot of different reasons that have nothing to do with the romance, and I'm in the romance business. So she said that. Shakira, who has not been married, she said, to tell you the truth, marriage scares the shit out of me. I don't want him to see me as the wife. I'd rather him see me as his girlfriend. And that's another one, just like Ava Mendes says, there is something, when you are happy at least, that is so much better about boyfriend and girlfriend than husband and wife, I believe, will ever be. For the most part. And again, saying this is somebody who's never been married, maybe it's awesome, but I think the spark and the romance, it's just not there. So I'll get back to that one in a second. The last one is Edie Falco, who was Carmela Soprano. And she said, I'm not married because I tend to get a lot of eye-rolling conversations with people about their marriages. Why would I want to head there? Very true. I've made that comment. I've made that joke myself at a time or two in the past, where by the time I even considered it in my late 30s, everybody I know was coming back out of the club, so to speak. Everybody else was getting divorced. Nobody seemed to tell me that it was better. Very rarely did I hear that people were happier husband and wife than they ever were boyfriend, girlfriend. And when people get married, I always ask them, when somebody proposes, why did you decide to get married? Why did you decide to take that step? Why did you know this? And the answers I always get are never the most romantic answers. They always circle in this area of, well, it was time to settle down, or we've been dating for 3 years, I wanted to be committed, or we wanted to have kids, or anything but the, are you kidding me? She is the love of my life, and of course I want to spend the rest of my life with her. I want to hear that. I do. That being said, I'm going to get into some of what I believe is the pros of at least the commitment. I'm going to talk about what it means to not be married and why. I had to take a quick break. Not that I have to pay for a wedding around here, but I could pay for a lot of other things. We are talking about marriage. We are calling this episode The Marriage Trap? Question mark, exclamation point, not sure. We will be back right after this. And we are back. And I like to talk about politics a lot. And somebody asked me, would you ever run for office? And I said that I don't believe that I could win. And they asked me why. And I said, I have two things that America will not vote for. One, I am agnostic. Doesn't mean I'm an atheist. It means I'm agnostic, which I think we all are at our core. Agnostic means I don't know. I don't really know. Could be, maybe. People are not comfortable with that answer. They want, in God we trust, on the money. They want, put your right hand on the Bible and swear to God. They want all of that. People are not prepared to deal with somebody who does not embrace some faith. I'm aware of that. And I'm not an atheist by any means. I'm like, I don't know. But they're not prepared to deal with agnostic. The other thing they're not prepared to deal with is bachelor president. And I don't care how long or how committed you are to your girlfriend, there has not been a bachelor there's only been two in history, and there has not been one in, I think, 150 years. I forget who it was. Tyler, Harrison, one of those nondescript ones. There's not been a bachelor president in a long, long time. America does not like that. They think it is not stable. They would rather have somebody with 5 divorces than never been married. And a lot of you out there in the dating pool would rather have somebody with 5 divorces than somebody who's never got married, because you guys always tell me at least it means you're capable of commitment. At least you're willing to take that plunge. At least you're willing to get on the knee and says, I want to do this. And I don't know if that really is true just because somebody gets married. A lot of people, like I said, get married for a lot of reasons. A lot of people get married assuming it's not going to last forever. And a lot of people, especially men, the ones who get up there 4, 5, 6, 7 marriages, shout out to the late Larry King. I think you're getting married after you got divorced so many times and you do have the means to survive divorce many times. I think you're trying to lock her down. I think you're not trying to make sure she's with you. I think a lot of these guys are proposing so she doesn't go with somebody else. And I think that's what a lot of the serial marriers are, and I don't think that's necessarily a better thing. And so a lot of especially the women and the people come to our show and they put their hands up and they say, I wouldn't necessarily trust somebody who is a bachelor in their 40s, 50s, 60s, because that generally means one of 3 things, none of them good. And I agree with this. To the women, it means you're gay, possibly, closeted. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying it's a bad thing for a woman looking for a husband. 2, it means you're an absolute player and you don't want to just pick one woman. Or 3, you are emotionally unavailable, mommy issues, blah, 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 blah. And so you haven't properly processed it. You can probably put me in category 2 and 3 for a long, long time. And I think 2 leads to 3. I think you could say that I was emotionally unavailable for most of my adult life because, as I've said a lot of times on this podcast, my parents were married a long, long time, 50 plus years. I'm not sure they even liked each other. And so that was not a good example for me. And because I did not trust the love, quote unquote, that they had for each other, I'm not sure I could trust the love they had for me. And then I'm not sure I trusted the concept. So I existed most of my adult life in sort of this emotionally walled off middle bandwidth, not too high, not too low. I had a lot of long-term relationships where I would put enough chips on the table to stay in the game, but not enough to go all in. I have, I think, processed that. I have dealt with that. I own that. If somebody says, why haven't I got married? I put it entirely on me and the work I needed to do and the conversation I needed to have with 7-year-old Brian and the therapist I needed to see and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think till I got to my mid-40s was I sort of emotionally competent enough to say, I want to go all in. But part of me has always liked that concept. Secretly, I've been sort of working on this proposal for like 20 years. I spend like 10 minutes a day on it, like somebody who works on a puzzle a little bit. I think I could do it better. I think I could make it more meaningful. I think she would tell her friends and make her friends feel terrible, but that their husband just sort of lit it up on a scoreboard. And so there's a part of me that really believes in that I want there to be a level beyond boyfriend, girlfriend. And you've heard me do podcasts about this before where I'm like, the best compliment I can say is to just look at the person I'm with and say, that's the girl. And I know what that means, and she knows what that means, and I've done a whole episode on that. But, you know, to outsiders, they want to be able to define your relationship and make it seem like he is different from all the boyfriends. She is different from all the girlfriends. These long-term couples that we know are happy together, the Goldie Hawns and Kurt Russells and people like that who've been together 20, 30 years, and we kind of know. And the question they always ask is like, why didn't you guys get married? I think Ricky Gervais is with his girlfriend for like 30 years. How come you never get married? Yeah, I think that marriage probably wouldn't bring any more to the table. I do believe there's value to the kids if mom and dad are married, even though it takes the romance out of it. I think it's good to have probably the same last name, and it feels like a family. And I see the pluses in all of that. And I do believe in and want and the one guy, one girl, happily ever after, let's do 50 years. And people have joked to me, well, now you waited so long, you probably don't have to do 50 years, so you shorten the term. You shorten the sentence to like 34 years. Maybe, but I'm also not jaded on the idea of marriage. Lots of people who get into their 40s, 50s, 60s, almost all of them are divorced if they're still single. The dating pool is filled with mostly divorced people. And for those people, they have lost the hope and the faith and the dream of till death do us part, happily ever after, because they tried it and they don't have it. So I believe, Oprah, whatever her, personal situation is, and she gets criticized and questioned all the time about her relationship with Stedman and her relationship with Gail and her relationship with everything. And, she had a traumatic childhood. She's also a conglomerate, which involves a lot of lawyers and stuff. If you want to get married, it's a little more complicated. I don't think she's not capable of love. I don't think it's something she doesn't want. I don't think any of these things, Marissa Tomei, she's on this list. I went out one night with Marissa Tomei. I'm not sure marriage is for her either. I'll just leave it at that. But as for me, and for a lot of people who come to our shows, men, so-called bachelors for 40s and 50s, I think in a lot of ways that it's capable of breaking the bachelor. I believe the right woman, girl, situation, relationship, timing can make him do exactly what he would have done that you dreamed about when he was 24. We bring up Warren Beatty a lot on this podcast, who was probably the most famous bachelor in the, 60s, 70s, 80s. He probably had a 30-year run as the Lothario of Hollywood. He's now been married to Annette Bening like 32 years, like a long, long time. He waited and waited and waited and got married, and it worked for him. He waited till I think he was ready to not just meet the right person, but to let that person be that person in his world, in his presence, in his universe. I think a lot of men are doing the work and do want to make it work. And the guy who's single at 48 or 52 or 62 and he's never been married, I don't think he's out there chasing around some 26-year-old because he's never dated somebody young, or he's never dated an Asian girl, or he's never had this or that or whatever because he was married for 15 years. I think the so-called lifelong uncommitted bachelors, I think they're as capable of love and a lasting relationship as anybody. I know people always look to George Clooney like, has he ever settled down? That was a bit of the myth that he was putting out there. He was married in his 20s to an actress. So he was married for a while. He liked the People magazine covers that he was this sort of, perpetual bachelor, but that wasn't really the case. He was a married guy. And I think his wife, who he married now, knew that. People were always like, oh, he waited to find this intelligent woman. No, he didn't. I'm not saying his first wife wasn't. I'm just saying he didn't wait like anybody else. He was just a regular divorced guy out in the pool. But I think when people make these snippy comments about marriage, or like, I don't need a piece of paper to tell me or whatever, I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I think there is something to the ceremony and the rings and standing up in front of whoever, your friends or your family or God or society, and saying, I am committed to this person in a very definable and public fashion. I think that has merit. I like that. You can give me all that. That's easy for you to say. You don't do that. Doesn't mean I don't believe in it. And I don't know if it means you have to actually go down to City Hall and get the paperwork and whatever it takes, blood tests and licenses and all that. You know, you guys could stand on a bluff in Ireland and say the vows to each other and believe what it is you believe and call each other husband and wife and let the world know that this is the person for me. And that's the guy and this is the girl. And that's what I think. And so I don't know. I put myself on that list at the beginning, but a lot of them are sort of anti and bitter and angry or jaded about the concept of it. I am not one of those people, which is probably why I do this show. I believe in the me and you, two of us, loving, monogamous, sharing, growing. There's nobody in the world I would rather be doing this with than you. And so whatever that looks like, however you have to phrase that, however you have to seek that, I'm all in. I'm in favor of it. I believe in it. So put me on this list, take me off this list. But if you ask me why I haven't been married yet, just put the focus on yet and not on never. All right? Shoot me an email. greatlovedebate@gmail.com, all you perpetual bachelors and bachelorettes out there. I want to hear your thoughts on it. Go to greatlovedebate.com. We have some live shows coming up. I'm picking and choosing which ones I want to do, but I'm sure somebody at the show will raise their hand and say, why are we talking to you? You've never been married, and I will have an answer for it. I'll say, listen to this episode. But most importantly, like, share, follow. Please review this podcast. Your reviews will always mean a lot in the podcasting ecosystem, happily ever after, because as always, at The Great Love Debate, we never stop making love. See you next time.